Hello and welcome to the Quietly Visible podcast. I'm your host, Carol Stewart, founder of Abounding Solutions and author of Quietly Visible, Leading with Influence and Impact as an Introverted Woman. And this is the podcast for introverted women who want to thrive as leaders and in life. Now, today I have a very special guest with me. For those of you who attended the conference for introverted leaders in September, you will recognize him. His name is Richard Etienne, and he expertly facilitated the panel discussions, got very, very positive feedback about those panel discussions, and he was very skillful in how he guided the questions and getting each of the panel speakers to speak. So a little bit about Richard. Richard is a former official photographer to the British Prime Minister Theresa May. And he spent the past 20 years driving the online promotion of global brands across academia, art, and politics. He's an award-winning personal branding consultant and specializes in amplifying the voices of quiet leaders. He's the founder of the Introvert Space, and we're going to be talking about the Introvert Space, which is a community-focused organization dedicated to empowering introverts in the workplace and beyond, which is something that we greatly need. And his company offers resources, training and support with the flagship initiative, Black Introvert Week UK, having positively impacted the lives of nearly 1 million Black introverts in the UK. And for 6 years, he hosted masterclasses for introverted professionals in partnership with The Guardian. For those of you in the US or outside the UK, that is one of our daily newspapers. And he now works with The Standard, which is another daily newspaper here in the UK, for those of you that don't know, to continue his mission of empowering introverts. So, hello, Richard, and welcome.
Hello, Carol, and hello, everyone listening. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction and the feedback from your event. It was my first time being at your event, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And what really struck me was how deeply what was being said resonated with those present. I mean, there was laughter, there were tears. It was a day. It was a day.
It really was something special, and it shows me just how much it's needed.
Exactly.
It really does, that we need these spaces for introverts. So before we sort of dig deep, just tell us a bit about who Richard is.
Who am I? On my website, I have 3 very short sentences. It goes, I talk, I film, I write. And that's kind of me. I'm a storyteller in terms of like communications. I love filmmaking. I wrote I filmed a documentary about my late father. Both my parents are from Dominica, but I did a type of like, who do you think you are? That's
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember that? They have that in the States and the UK as well. And so yeah, I did that for my father, and actually came back with more questions than answers. And then I do a lot of writing, as you mentioned, some of the newspapers I work with, and I talk, and it's just and this is why it's great to be here with you, because you're someone who does that quite well and regularly. So yeah, that is me, and I chose this communication form of career, I guess, because there was a time I was sat in my living room. I think I was about early teens, and my father was sat at his bureau with his back to me on a swivel chair. And I was watching television, and I was just flicking through, and I think we just got cable TV for the first time, so we had like 99 channels instead of 5. And this was old back in the day, right? So every time you turn the television, it made that flicking sound. Every time you turn the channel. My father was clearly writing, or he wanted some quiet. And he said, "Can you just pick a channel?" And I said, "But Dad, there's nothing on I like." And then he spins around on his chair to face me, and then just simply says, well, why don't you make something you want to watch? And that kind of did it for me. I was like, yeah. So content creation is my thing. And as someone who was definitely not a fan of being in front of the camera and telling other people's stories, this is why um, it just comes so comfortably and naturally to me now to tell the stories of introverts, introverted leaders, and yeah, just other people in society who has amazing stories to tell. In my opinion, everyone has a story to tell, and I'm here to do that.
Mm. And how do you go about, particularly with people who are introverted, how do you go about drawing out their story and getting them to share their story? Because, a lot of leaders, not just introverted leaders, but extroverted as well, can benefit from storytelling. But I know, particularly with, a lot of the introverted leaders that I work with, they can find that challenging,
Mm.
putting that spotlight on themselves. So how do you draw out their story and get them to share their story in front of camera?
So it's two things. It's about, first of all, the setting or environment, and then it's the method of questioning. I'll use Theresa May as an example. She's an introvert, and I
Yeah.
know this because she told me. However, environment, she would probably not have said that to me had I asked her in front of other members of staff. And the question style is, I didn't just ask her straight, are you an introvert? That's a bit of a spotlight question that introverts would be like, wait, what? It was simply like, how would you describe your personality to someone who doesn't know you? So it's about, yeah, framing it as an invitation, an open question, but also just being mindful of the environment. So if, for example, imagine you have, introverted leader, internal comms has come and knock on her door and says, "Hey, Miss CEO, it's time to share your story in in some form to your staff." It doesn't have to be on camera. It could be in the form of a blog where it's just one to one, and she gets to talk about something that's relevant and meaningful to her. So it could be literally the question of why this company, and what would life be like for you if you weren't here? What try to understand the the layers, the deeper layers that individual has, because we all have them.
Mm-hmm.
I like reading bios, and I might actually start adopting this, where we don't just talk about our career history, but I've read bios where people talk about they enjoy swimming, or their favorite place destination of travel is a particular place, because that is also a really great in, isn't it? It's like an open or a jar door
Mm-hmm.
for deeper conversation, when for those who may struggle with small talk. Imagine you're in a networking event and you're stood next to someone who's very senior in your organization. Nerves, fear, anxiety may get the best of you. You won't really know what to talk about because you're not at the board meetings. You don't sit at exec level, but you know that this leader likes to play the piano, and
Mm.
and you're also learning how to play the piano, and you have that conversation. So yeah, it's definitely about environment, but also creating an open opportunity with your question style.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking upon Theresa May, I'd recognised that she was introverted. And I think I even wrote an article about her once, some observations that I'd had. And it was about sort of being authentic. And there was a particular example, and I often use that when I'm sort of delivering webinars and workshops and sessions about inauthenticity and doing things that don't align with who you are. And this was at I think it was the last party conference. political party conference that they had that she was at, and she came on the stage dancing to ABBA's Dancing Queen, and she was like this, and I thought, oh my dears, who's advised her to do that? Because it's not her. It just didn't look authentic. And then I remember her exit speech when she was outside 10 Downing Street, and she just looked so authentic. And I thought, if only she'd been like that, throughout, rather than having whoever's advisor to, go on like that. It would have I think it would have made a big difference, because she just looked so natural. She just had this energy that she radiated, because she just looked like she was being herself. And I guess that is a lesson for a lot of us about how we appear, putting on personas, or whether we show up as ourselves.
I agree. Certainly.
Yeah, a big lesson, I think, that was observing that. So the introvert space. What is the introvert space, and
So
why?
oh,
And why create
and
the
why?
introvert
Right,
space?
yeah. Why the introvert space? So the introvert space, why? First of all, yeah, I like why. Why is a good place to start. Like many of us introverts, we have either read or know of Susan Cain's book Quiet, and that was something that I read around mid-career, and was during a period of my life actually where I was kind of questioning, or starting to question, if there was something wrong with me, because my peers around me, friends, etc., didn't quite get why I wasn't always out, or was needed a bit more time. I appreciated alone time more than they did, and etc. And just was a bit more considered, and all the rest of the kind of introverted type characteristics. And yeah, after reading that book, I was like, oh my God, I'm part of this wonderful club called Introverts. And so I looked online for like advice and tools and things for how, now I know my personality style, how I can adapt it, build upon it within the workplace. That is so extroverted, like in terms of its makeup, preference, and the rest of it. And I just struggled to find said content. And this is when I reached out to the Guardian that you mentioned earlier, and they ran a series of masterclasses, and I worked with them to then put together something tailored for introverts who want to thrive and have their voices heard in the workplace. And yeah, I've been doing those classes for a while, and they've always been well attended. And the resources that I put online, I haven't done much, because I have had a 9 to 5, and being a single parent and the rest of it. There were a lot of other responsibilities, but it was very clear from feedback I was receiving that this was something that was effective and highly appreciated and needed. And so the introvert space was then born. I was like, okay, let's combine those three elements I mentioned earlier, the talking, the writing, the filming, to create a platform, or a hub, where introverts can feel, first of all, psychologically safe, because they can freely express how they feel, and also share, receive useful information that can help them to thrive in the workplace. So yeah, that is the introvert space. It's here, and I'm really looking forward to seeing its growth and helping as many people as possible.
And I look forward to seeing its growth as well. I'm sure it's going to be a very valuable resource. And I will ask you to share how people can find it before we finish. So if I could just take you back in time to where you said you were questioning if something was wrong with you, what was that period like for you?
Oh gosh, it was quite lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And as a Londoner, as many other Londoners may unfortunately know, you can be lonely even though you're not alone. And so having or feeling as if I had no one to relate with or to, and having even basic things like films, TV, books, like so everybody seemed to be the kind of extroverted characteristic. They were the ones with that the hero, and if anyone was a bit more considered or quiet, they were like portrayed as some, I don't know, like some weird geek that was just left in the background and just never. They weren't portrayed as anything positive. Let's say. Um, and so it was this period of loneliness and then feeling underappreciated, undervalued. Um, but I'm very pleased that it didn't stop me from at least pursuing an answer. In some way.
Yeah. And did that affect you? And so until you, and I call it, became introvert and proud, did that affect your career at all? Do you think that, um, when before you had that recognition that, yeah, this is a strength, this is something to be proud of. What was the sort of impact to you navigating your career?
Yeah, I would overthink before applying for certain roles, especially if the job description contained words like dynamic, energetic, join this young and dynamic team, and like all that type of stuff. And um, I wouldn't apply for startups. I mean, this was when social media was just really kind of picking up. Yeah, so there was the overthinking, and then I wouldn't put myself forward for certain projects that I knew had people who, those dominant ones in the meetings that would just always speak, and they only came up with ideas in brainstorming sessions, and it's like there wasn't much space or time given for consideration, reflection. Like a meeting began at this time and ended at that time. There was no, hey, if you think of anything else, you can contact me here, or it was. I did move around a lot because my, in filming, you get a project, and once it's done, you kind of move on. And yeah, especially in that industry as well, film production. Yeah, it can be quite character dominant, and they're the ones that always seem to kind of get ahead. So yeah, in the workplace, overthinking, reluctant to apply myself, and yeah, kind of just stayed in the
Mm,
background. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. And once you had that revelation, as I like to call it, um, what difference did that make to you?
But first of all, it was like, oh, right. So introverts, extroverts, it's not something you can recognize just by looking at someone. And this is what I really try my best to share in my sessions is, it's how one gains or drains energy. Like it's nothing to
Hmm.
do with how someone looks, right? And so it was actually engaging in conversations with certain individuals. I learned more about their personality type, and it was actually, oh wait, you are an introvert as well. Wow, this is dope. So let's and that helped me to connect better with such ones, and vice versa. And then also knowing, having that revelation, as you said, I knew that actually I had added value in meeting environments, um, projects, etc., and on set, and also coming up with alternative story ideas, which kind of delved a bit deeper into someone's characteristics. which then actually got the green light by the person that we were trying to interview or kind of spotlight. So, when the opportunity came to then work at Downing Street, I was like, yeah, let's go. Because at the time I was looking for work, Theresa May she had like weird nicknames like Maybot, and
oh gosh,
yeah, she had just given an interview with one of our regular kind of magazine shows called The One Show, and someone said, "What's the wildest thing you did?" or whatever, and she was like, "Yeah, I ran through some fields of wheat," and that got mocked a lot. So I was like, nah. This to your earlier point, actually, Cal, you could tell this woman had something deeper. And so when the opportunity came to tell her story, it was like, yeah, let's go. So to answer your question in a short way, it just provided I saw more opportunities for my value to be implemented. So yeah, that was wonderful.
And I think that once people recognize the strengths that they have as an introvert, it can be transformational. If we follow what happens out there in the workplaces, society, particularly here in the UK, the US, and a lot of other countries, you'd think that what Susan Cain terms the extrovert ideal, that is the way to be. And for those of you listening who haven't heard of the extrovert ideal, Susan Cain, in her book Quiet the Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking, refers to the extrovert ideal as being an omnipresent belief that the ideal self is alpha, gregarious, and comfortable being in the spotlight, which is extroversion. And I think once people realize and they have that light bulb moment that, yeah, these are strengths, these are qualities, it's transformational. And then if you pursue the things that you do, utilizing those strengths and qualities, you become more animated about them. You want to talk about them more, and people are attracted to that because you are being authentic.
Exactly that.
Yeah. So the introvert space, let's go back to the introvert space. Where do you see that going? Where would you like it to go?
Where would I like it to go? I am someone who appreciates data. I think Jay-Z said, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. And I then use data as a way to decide where the focus should go, whether it's for a particular campaign, year, whatnot. Currently, there's a lot of data out there based on introverted graduates entering into the workforce for the first time. And so I created a toolkit for HR leaders and people managers, which is a toolkit for the inclusive management of introverts, or TIMI for short. And it's basically understand it was a natural progression from going in from education into the workplace that is different to how we experienced it. So imagine COVID, right? I know lockdown seasons 1 and 2, right? Where we are working from home. That is all someone entering in the workforce would know and understand. And now we're moving into hybrid. We've moved into hybrid work, and some organizations are, pulling you in full time. I mean, look at Amazon. And look, it's daunting for nearly all kind of people new to the workforce, but especially for introverted colleagues going in. And so the data that is revealed in TIMI also then uses that data to then show, here are some practical strategies that HR should use for onboarding, for reviews, and for training and so forth, to make workplace environments feel more inclusive for such for new employees or introverted graduates. So yeah, the introvert space, I would love it to be a data-led organization or platform that empowers not just the introverts, but those who either manage them, teach them, coach them, because it is two-way. We need allies in order to thrive, and it's definitely not an us versus them situation. It's definitely something of collaboration so that we can all get the best out of each other. So yeah, that's the vision for now, for sure.
Yeah, no, sounds wonderful. And as you said, data, you provide the data, providing data, I think is so important for people to see things for how they really are.
Exactly, exactly.
Hmm.
It's where the initiative as well, Black Introvert Week, also, I wouldn't say it was born. I got the inspiration from Jerry Bingham, who started Black Introvert Week in the US.
Hmm.
Shouts out to Jerry. I know you two have met as well, so that's
Yeah.
wonderful. And I remember when she told me about it, and she was like, "You should totally, introduce it in the UK." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know if I don't know if we're ready for that." So I was like, "Okay, let's give it a try." So in 2021, did an interview with the BBC, Cosmopolitan UK, and someone else I can't remember actually. And it will come to me just to kind of put it out there, and again using data
Hmm.
from the ONS, and then knowing that a third of individuals at the time were introverts, and it's like, okay, that's how I was able to work out there were 1 million Black introverts within the UK, we're a minority within a minority, and then basically just trying to find out get a sense of what the interest was. And my God, impressions on the stories and on social media went into the hundreds of thousands, and I was like, ah,
Hmm.
okay, so this is a story. So yeah, it's been going for 4 years now. Hosted live events that you've also attended. Thank you for
Hmm.
joining. That was wonderful. And our focus each year again is data led. Last year it was um, on young Black introverts going into the workforce for the first time, and that's what kind of led the release of Timmy. The year before that, so 2023, that was about education because
Hmm.
again, there's data to show that children between like 7 to 9 years old, that's where one's personality is starting to be kind of like solidified. So teachers have so much responsibility at that stage to ensure that those who are introverted do not feel marginalized or to feel like there's something wrong with them. Because
Hmm.
I definitely remember when I was that young, if I wasn't the one putting my hand up or giving presentations or reading things out in front of the class, that during parents' evening, my father was then told, I think there's something wrong with your son, even though my predicted grades were freaking awesome. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and those are stories I hear time and time again, still today. And, I think the focus on early careers is a good one because as people enter the workforce, particularly for those who are introverted, going into environments where they are extroverted is scary and creates a lot of anxiety. I did some research not too long ago. It was a qualitative study looking at how introverted women leaders experience belonging and psychological safety in the workplace. And for all of them, their early careers were quite challenging and it was an intersectional group of women as well. So, we had, all different types of characteristics that were introverted and sort of demographic. And it's, as a lot of them are sort of like late 30s, 40s. Um, and as time has gone on and they've got to learn and understand more about introversion, that they have started to be able to become who they really are. But those early parts of their career, for some of them, are very stressful. So I think having that focus for early careers and how it can support early career introverts is going to be quite impactful. And then what you say about education as well and schools, that oftentimes it's those very early life experiences that shape how people, the belief that people have in themselves, and being told as a child, oh, you've got to put your hand up more, you're too quiet, can have a really significant negative impact on them. I remember when I was researching my book and speaking to someone who told me that her daughter, who was either 12 or 13, had come home from school one day upset, really, really upset, because she'd been marked down the grade. And the only reason she was given for that was because she didn't put her hand up enough in class. So academically, she was very bright. She was, her marks were great, but because she didn't put her hand up enough in class, they marked her down a grade. And, and I said, well, just imagine the impact that's going to have on her as she grows if she's constantly being made to feel that she's not good enough because she doesn't put her hand up enough or she's not speaking up enough. That's going to lead to self-doubt, imposter syndrome as she gets older. And I see it all the time. And even a few years ago, I went and did a talk in my primary school that I went to in Sheffield. And I did a talk to the children about managing their emotions. And the head teacher had a really good conversation with the head teacher about introversion and how children are made to feel. And then I got this really lovely email from him after thanking me for coming into the school, because it's really made him think about how they're doing their introverted children a disservice. They sort of make them feel that confidence is about speaking up and putting your hand up, but by not acknowledging and recognizing their participation in different ways, the impact that it's having on them. So yes, schools, teachers really need to learn about all this stuff. So I hope they tap into the introvert space as well.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, look, it also has weaved its way into our workplaces, right? To your point about that student who was graded down because of not raising a hand in class. We have people who are getting put down on appraisals because they're not speaking up more in meetings. This is not, it's not right.
That's right. Yes. And I think the worst thing that you can say to someone who's introverted is you need to speak up more in meetings. Because I mean, the way that most meetings are designed are not inclusive anyway, because they don't allow for the different thinking styles and way that people process information. And so for introverts, they have that barrier, and then that can create communication anxiety. So they're feeling anxious about speaking up, or they're not being able to just speak up on the spot, not having the time to process information makes them feel more anxious. And then because they feel anxious, it affects how they perform in meetings. So yes, it's a lot of work to do.
A lot, exactly.
So how can people connect with the introvert space, connect with you? Where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, so if you just Google or any search engine, just put the Introvert Space, you'll find the LinkedIn website, etc. Or you could go to the introvertspace.com. It's a growing platform. It will grow, and I'm grateful for your support, and I just hope that it helps all those listening and all those that visit in any way, however small. Because there's nothing sweeter than being reintroduced to yourself with the belief and understanding that, you know what, wow, these are the superpowers that I possess, and I will now apply this in the environments that I feel comfortable.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So listeners, if you're watching this, if you're listening to it, do go and check out the Introvert Space, as Richard said. So you can Google it and you'll find it, and follow him on LinkedIn as well, so that you can be kept up to date as to what is happening in the Introvert Space. So thank you, Richard. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I look forward to seeing all that's going to happen with the Introvert Space and supporting it in any way that I can.
Thank you.
So thank you for listening, everyone. As I said, do connect with Richard on LinkedIn, follow him on LinkedIn, check out the Introvert Space. And if you're looking to increase your confidence, influence, and impact, and you haven't completed the free assessment on my website, go to aboundingsolutions.com. Under the free resources tab, you will find an assessment that you can complete that will give you ideas about areas that you can focus on. And so, until the next time, bye.